And on the meat side of things, it gets me thinking about, the domestication of pigs, cows, a lot of different animals where we're getting our meat, chickens, and we could go on and on. How have those animals changed over the years? Like, how new to the genetic pool is a cow? If I picture back, 100, 200,000 years, I'm picturing like buffalo roaming, and cows seem like these domesticated, weak in comparison animals. And if we're basing, you mentioned 99% of your diet is based off of the cow and beef and steak. It's like, how do you think about that in comparison to wild animals?
Well, it's mostly to do with what the animal's eating itself. I mean, cows are natural. They've been around for a very long time, and they were bred and domesticated from things like buffalo, or we have water buffalo and other sorts of things in different countries that have been domesticated from the wild buffalo, and then the aurochs, which is like it's a big, massive cow. That's what the current cows were domesticated from. So they're not all that far off. And I mean, we're talking about getting nutrients in the form of fat and protein. That's what we need. The animal kingdom runs on fat and protein by and large. I mean, there's some insects and birds that drink nectar and have some differences in their biochemistry, but the vast majority of animals run on fat and protein. So even carnivores and herbivores, right? Carnivores, they eat animals with fat and protein. They eat the fat first. They go for that. That's the mainstay of their diet, is just trying to get fatty meat. But also herbivores, because that's actually what they turn fiber into. So animals that eat fibrous food and are able to break that down, they don't actually absorb glucose. So fiber is a string of glucose, right? So cellulose. But sorry, and but those are bound up in ways that we can't access. So this is another way of the plant protecting itself. We cannot break those bonds. We can't get that glucose. We can't get that nutrient source. So no vertebrate animal can break down cellulose, right? So it's the bacteria that's cultivated in the guts and the rumen of the cows, say, that actually eat the fiber. And as a byproduct, they actually produce short chain fatty acids, which are 100% saturated. So even gorillas that just eat green leaves, they get about 70% of their calories from saturated fat. Cows get closer to 80% of their calories from saturated fat. And then the bacteria die off and they're broken down and absorbed as protein. So, even animals that are just eating fiber are really, they're eating fiber, but they're absorbing fat and protein. So we need fat and protein just like all these other animals do, and we can't get that from fiber. That's another reason we know that we're not supposed to eat plants, because we cannot derive any nutrition from fiber. We can't break it down. We used to be able to. You look at other primates, they have a long cecum, which we call an appendix. It's about that big. In a gorilla or a chimpanzee, it's like 4 or 5 feet long. And this is where fiber packs down into and breaks down into short chain fatty acids. We lost that ability millions of years ago because we haven't used it in millions of years. And there's high energy demand for the intestine. And so if you're not using that, you can't waste energy just having a big, long part of your gut that you're not using. That's like you're going to die. You're going to waste energy and you're going to go extinct. So, there's nothing, that, even, in just bred cows and things like that, it's still, protein and fat, and you're still getting these nutrients, still getting B12 and the niacin and all the different sorts of things that you need in the proportion that you need it. But specifically if they're eating what they're supposed to eat. So the difference between domesticated animals and wild animals is generally the wild animals are eating what they're designed to eat, and they're going to have all the nutrients that they need, and they're going to be as healthy as they can be. So it's generally more nutrient dense and packed with more that we would use for ourselves. It's very bioavailable. Domesticated animals, if they're fed what they're supposed to eat, they're going to be right on par with those wild animals, as long as the soil health is such that it provides those nutrients to the animal. And that's a whole other thing that people are now getting into now, which is regenerative agriculture, whereas you're sort of pasturing cows and sort of keeping them moving. Like, in the wild, if there were predators, herd of buffalo, herd of cows would be tight packed in. And because they're protecting themselves, you don't want to have a bunch of stragglers where, a pack of wolves or a lion can get you. So you tight packed in, and that keeps everything bunched and moving. Now everything's urinating and defecating on the things that you're eating. So you have to just keep moving. You're sort of eating patches here, and you're leaving your you're leaving your leavings, and you have to just keep moving. And this keeps things moving and migrating, and not overgrazing and damaging, and also leaving a lot of nutrients for the soil, which is like the urine and feces, which is fertilizer. And so regenerative agriculture, they'll move these animals around pastures, simulating that sort of migration pattern, and it gets much more healthy. And then they'll move chickens in. They'll have the bugs going after all the droppings and things like that. The chickens are eating the bugs that are going for the droppings, and now you're upcycling those nutrients as well. And the pattern goes on, and this actually makes the grass grow better, grows longer, grows faster if you do it this way, and it makes the nutrients in the soil more rich, which makes the grass more nutrient dense, which makes the cows more nutrient dense. And every generation that you do this, the soil is getting better, the grass is getting better, the cows are getting better, and so you'll see the nutrient content in these regenerative raised animals be, triple, quadruple that of normal feedlot beef, right? So that makes a big difference. I saw a talk given by a gentleman who did regenerative agriculture. I think he was talking at Hillsdale College, and he said that like a normal chicken egg. If I'm not, I apologize if I'm misremembering the exact quote, but I think he was talking about folate, and the amount of folate that was in a normal chicken egg. Average chicken egg in America was about 41 milligrams. But in his eggs from his chickens, it was over 1,000, right? So it was a massive, massive, massive bonus in the amount of nutrients that are there. And I've sort of experienced that. I got an older cow. I went directly to the rancher, which I think is the best way to do it. You're cutting out the middleman. It's better for the rancher. It's better for you. You know how that animal is raised. You know it was ethically raised, ethically cared for. I get older cows. It has a longer, nicer life, and also it tastes a lot better. And I think that's because of this nutrient density. It has just a much more intense, beefy flavor, which I like. And so I got a 10-year-old cow that was only eating grass its entire life and never ate anything else. And this thing was amazing. I felt supercharged every time I ate it. I had to eat much less. Our bodies are chasing nutrients more than they're chasing calories. And so I was eating this, and I ate half of what I would normally eat from the store. And I was just buzzing and teeming with energy. I just felt amazing. And so, yeah, I do think there's a difference there, but I think it's more to do with what the animal is eating and being fed rather than their genetics.
Well, it's interesting as you talk about that. It gets me thinking about how, when we think of the quality of the animal, it's a microcosm for what we've been talking about in this conversation, where when we buy better quality, we're trying to avoid toxins, things like antibiotics or different stuff that's in the feed that they're giving a conventional animal. And you mentioned the increased nutrition. So it's that same yin and yang that we've been talking about comes down to when we're buying better quality animals. So given all that, you mentioned this 10-year-old cow. How much of a priority is that for you when you're buying your animals? Is that a regular thing for you to buy organic, grass-fed, grass-finished? How do you look at that, and how do you allocate your money for different qualities?
Well, in America, I certainly did that, and that's because I had access to it, and you definitely have access to it in Canada and America. In Australia, you don't really. It's harder to do that. The systems are in place are such that you really have to go through the big manufacturers and the abattoirs and things like that. You can't go direct to the farmer, unfortunately. There are some things like Butcher Crowd, which has I've recently been in contact with and ordered some of their boxes, and that comes straight from the farmer, and so you can get that experience there. But even then, I mean, I'm not able to source like I want the oldest cow that you have in your lot sort of thing. It's the normal steers, but it is raised on just pasture raised sort of thing. So you can do that. There are those options, but in America, I could just call a rancher and just say, hey, this is what I'm looking for. I want an older cow. Are you culling any, coming up? And I'm like, well, actually, yeah. We're we're planning to cull a 10-year-old cow from the herd, later, in 3 months or so. You can have that. Normally, they just grind them down for hamburger because there's not really a market for older beef because people think it's more tough and it's not as tender, which is I didn't find that to be the case at all. But you're really, but even if if it were, it's not enough of a difference to be a bother to me. And also, you're sacrificing flavor and nutrient profile for tenderness, which I don't think is a good trade off. And so I just went to him and I got that. It was cheaper. It was cheaper per pound than I could have gotten a 2-year-old steer from the same guy, right? Because it was less in demand, and it was better for him because he got much less money for these things than he would otherwise. And so he got more and I got more. And so that was a win-win. Unfortunately, here in Australia, I don't really have the same access. I think there are some people that if you know a farmer or you have your own cow or something like that, then you can slaughter it for your own use or something like that, or work an arrangement if you know somebody. I don't unfortunately don't have those connections yet, and so I haven't been able to do that. But so I still just buy store-bought, Safeway beef, Costco beef. I generally go to Costco. I buy in bulk, and it works great. It's not as good, I don't think, but there have been some studies sort of looking at the differences. You don't see sort of big macro differences where someone's actually getting deficient and having problems just from eating store-bought beef. I felt better with the grass-fed, grass-finished older cow. Definitely, I enjoyed that more, but I don't think you're going to do yourself any harm. And that's one of the things too, that you don't have to do just the grass-fed, grass-finished, organic, all that sort of stuff. Just Safeway meat is excellent. I think of it as the difference between silver and gold medalists at the Olympics, right? So the silver medalist lost to gold, but the silver medalist also beat everyone else on earth, right? So if you can't get gold, then look, silver, like you're not losing by going silver. So I still eat, the majority of what I eat is just store-bought, feedlot beef. And I feel great as a result of that. It's better than any of the other alternatives apart from grass-finished and fed and finished meat or wild-caught game would be ideal, of course. But I don't have access to that either, unfortunately.
If you enjoyed that clip, press here for the full episode. I'll see you over there.
No animal eats the variety of plants that we do, and I think that that's causing and driving most of the modern non-communicable chronic diseases that we face these days. It is the complete elimination diet because it gets rid of